What is up? Welcome to this week's episode of Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast. I am your host, LURK, and today I am sitting with fucking Brody, the guitarist, keyboardist, everythingist for the band River of Nile. And we will be talking about their new upcoming self-titled album, which is releasing May 30th through Metal Blade Records. Currently, you guys have two singles out, House of Light and American Death. I suppose by the time the album actually reaches the audience, another single or two may be out there. But Brody, welcome to the show today. How you doing, man?
Good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good.
That's awesome. So you guys had a couple years in between the work and the self-titled. Mainly, I want to know, why did you guys decide to go with self-titled as a album title this time around?
Yeah, I mean, we have gone through like some pretty significant lineup changes since the last record. The first four records that we did were kind of part of a conceptual series, I guess. Our first record was like a spring record, second one summer, third one fall, and then the last record was a winter album. And after we got done with the Four Seasons, we decided that, not decided, but we were kind of looking for, what came next, essentially. And being that the band has been through so much in the last, 4 years, and the lineup is, pretty different from what it was on the last record and all that, we figured that a self-titled record for a fifth album would be a good idea. I mean, Metallica did it, the Black Album. So, I mean, if we're going to keep it real simple, I mean, that was definitely like something that we looked to, like album 5, self-titled, let's go for it, but also, obviously, when you see a band that has a self-titled album coming out, a lot of times, it's like, it's viewed as kind of an important record in the band's discography. Some bands do it for their first album, others don't, others never do one. But we figured that now would be a good time to do it, just because it's a new configuration, kind of a new chapter of the band, fresh start in a lot of ways. And, we feel it's some of the strongest material that we've ever put out. So we figured putting the self-titled moniker on it would kind of be an endorsement of the quality of the material that we, believe we've written here. So
interesting. And for those who are like unfamiliar with the band, you were talking about conceptual albums being like the seasons for the previous four. Is that something that is tied into lyrically as well? And is like the self-titled going to be something kind of conceptually as far as like a concept album, so to speak?
Previously, it was tied in kind of a roundabout way. It was really just more of a lens to kind of view the material on each record through. I mean, there were definitely very direct lines that could be drawn to the seasonal themes on each of the four records. But on this new one, I'm as far as my role in the band, I don't write any of the lyrics or anything like that. I'm not really the concept guy. I'm more of the songwriting, instrumental craft kind of guy. But this new record, to my understanding, isn't necessarily like a hard through line concept album type thing, as much as it is really just an album that covers a lot of topics, a lot of different topics, and kind of just ties them all up into sort of basically like the title Rivers of Nile. A lot of people, have asked us for many years what the band name means. And I don't think we've ever really had like a good answer for it. For a while, it was just like, oh, it's cool or whatever. But I think we really like thought about that this time. And I think this record, a lot of the songs on it kind of pick at like different things that are going on that go on during the course of a life, really, and kind of discuss like the things that you can kind of fall prey to, like whether it's paranoia, fear, depression, the things that are going on in society, whether it's, political or otherwise, and all these things that can kind of religion, all that kind of stuff that can sort of just like pull you into this like really confused, dark, paranoid, evil feeling place. It's easy to go to that place, and really the title Rivers of Nile is kind of a metaphor for that place. It's like the bad place, the dark place, the river that can kind of carry you through this life in that kind of like dark state of existence, and how much you really want to avoid that as much as you can, and kind of like reach for the light in a lot of ways. Yeah, so I probably did a horrible job at explaining that the way that Adam, who writes all the stuff, would have, but that was my attempt. So hopefully that was helpful.
Well, yeah, no one's looking at you to, fully explain the band name after, almost over a decade. So it is what it is. But yeah, it's interesting. You have to kind of go through all the seasonal changes and then get to the dark and light aspect of the band. So, it's a journey for the listener over the last decade plus. How do you feel the album builds or breaks away from the previous, whether it's, the work or, where Owls Know My Name or anything previous like that? Obviously, you guys got different members. There's been some shuffling within the lineup. So does it build or break on any of that, or, and whatnot, I guess?
Yeah. I think it kind of, this album is kind of just a culmination of the lessons that we've learned, on each record, musically writing each record. Kind of, we have enough albums at this point, this being our fifth record, that we can kind of like look back now and say like, hey, like what worked about this album, what didn't, what worked about these songs live, what didn't work, and we kind of have a big enough stack of albums now that we can look back and kind of reflect on what's happened and what's worked and what hasn't. And I think this record is really like probably the most concise album that we've written, like the most direct, I would say. Our last record, The Work, in a lot of ways was a COVID album. It was written during COVID. It was written during lockdown, a time when, we had endless time to work on an album. And that album ended up being like 110 minutes or something like that. Insane. You know what I mean? Like there were songs on the record that were 8 to 12 minutes long, and we're super proud of that record. But I think, in hindsight, looking at some of that material, there's definitely some stuff from that record that was like a little bloated, a little overly indulgent, playing that live, some of that stuff live, was definitely like a good learning experience for us, with like stuff that, music that is like maybe intended to be listened to with headphones in a dark room versus like stuff that translates really well live. So I think this record was really kind of like, I don't want to say like a rebound or a backswing from the last record, but we definitely wanted to make sure that this batch of songs was a batch of songs that was going to connect really well live. And we wanted to make sure that the songs were all laid out in a pretty concise way with like not a whole lot of bloat on them. This is like one of the shorter records we've released. I think it clocks in at like 50 minutes, which for us is like a shorter record. The last record was like an hour and 8 or an hour and 10. The record before that was like 58 minutes. So it hasn't been since 2015 that we've released a record that's 50 minutes or less. So, we just, I think this album in a lot of ways is kind of like a hybrid of the last two albums, but with kind of fresh take on things because we have a different lineup now. Andy from Black Crown Initiate having joined, and Adam, our bass player, taking over on vocals.
Right.
So I think it's they're pretty direct songs. There's not a whole lot of meandering on this record. I mean, there are tracks on the album that do kind of indulge in the more like adventurous, proggy kind of realm, but being that in 2021 we basically released an album that was just that, just, you know, all kind of exploration and just vast musical landscapes, some insanely cool and some, like, now in hindsight I'm like, geez, like that was way too much, you know. Having done that, I think we wanted to kind of come back on this one and really focus on like the core elements of the band, you know, just guitar, bass, drums, vocals, and then any additional instrumentation that we wanted to add. We wanted to, you know, do that after we like basically had the riffs and had the songs, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of riffs and whatnot, I was curious as to, like, since you are one of the lead guitar player, one of the guitar players in the band, what like inspires the band in the writing process? Like, do you guys listen to certain types of music, or do you just take, you know, certain types of things going on in the world, or like, you know, what inspires the sound of Rivers of Nihil, even though, you know, you were one of the founding or the, you know, long running members, you and Adam. So, you know, I know it's probably changed over the years because obviously, like we've talked about, the lineup changes, but also like you've had lineup changes in the past as well, people coming and going. But like, what inspires or drives the band musically?
Yeah, I mean, we're all big fans of, you know, music, like, you know, a lot of music, you know, outside of metal. In fact, I would say mostly music outside of metal. And like, we're constantly just getting into, you know, new things, different bands, and just kind of, you know, everyone in the band has such a different, you know, taste in music that, you know, when we get together and we go on tour, you know, we'll all end up kind of like, you know, exposing each other to whatever each of us are individually listening to. And there's a lot of like really good discussions that go on about, you know, whoa, like, you know, this is cool. Like, how could we kind of like, you know, incorporate this, you know, small snippet of like what this band is doing into something we're doing in the future, you know? You know, and sometimes there's like albums that are just like really big influences overall for like, you know, an individual project that we're working on. Like, I know for me personally, I was like really into the most recent A Perfect Circle album, Eat the Elephant. I was like super obsessed with that album when I was writing the last record, The Work. I was like really fascinated by how that album had like so many different drum tones, and like one song would be like a really dry, jazzy, brushed drum kit sound with like a super compressed piano and like really intimate vocals. And then the next track would just be this big, you know, electronic, like huge, almost like Nine Inch Nails-esque kind of thing. It was like a really, you know, insane album from track to track, just like very different from track to track. And I know for me personally, you know, that newest A Perfect Circle record really influenced my writing on the last Rivers record. So like sometimes there will be an album like that a couple of us like will really get on and like kind of just like pull ideas from, or just like general, you know, general things from these albums that we all kind of like connect on. And then in other cases, I mean, there's bands that we all, you know, all agree on really. You know, I know we all are like big Pink Floyd fans, for example. I mean, looking at their career and how each one of their records is like so different from the next has been like a really big inspiration for us as a band. But really, at this point, kind of going back to what I said earlier, you know, we have enough records now that we can kind of look back on what we've already done and like see what worked and what didn't, and what we liked and what we didn't. So nowadays it feels, or at least maybe on this newest record, at least it feels like we kind of look back at our discography and kind of like almost use that as kind of like an influence on the new material, and combine it with whatever it is that we were all individually listening to at the time. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, just being able to objectively look at what we've done and say, like, well, we think this sucks, or we think this is cool, like, let's do this, but like with the modern kind of mindset that we're in currently. I don't know. So yeah, it can really depend. It could be a specific like band that we're really creatively turned on by, or it could be something that we've done in the past that we think was really good but could be even better in the current era, I guess.
I gotcha. So are you an A Perfect Circle fan? And like, is Cage, like, our Elephant, the best one in your opinion?
ETFL, not
yeah,
Cage the Elephant.
That's a band. Yeah, it's a guy.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I mean, a lot of I am a Perfect Circle fan, yes, but yeah, a lot of their classic fans like really didn't like that new one, but I fucking loved it. It might even be my favorite one. It just has like, I don't know, I forget what's his name, Josh, like the guitarist in that band.
Freeze?
I think it's his name. What is it?
Is it Josh Freeze?
No, I don't know. Well, the main guitarist in that band, I think he does like a lot of film scoring work, and like on that newest A Perfect Circle record, it's like more evident than on any of them. Like the production is just so big and so varied. There's like massive like post-rock influence on that record. Like they've always had that, but on that one it was just like more prevalent than ever. And yeah, like I said, I'm just like a big fan of how they like made each song sound so different on that record. Maybe that's why, their classic fans were turned off by it, because it didn't, in certain ways, it doesn't feel like a complete thought, really. It feels like a bunch of like separate thoughts, but I kind of liked that about the record because it was just like so different from track to track. But yeah, to answer your question, probably my favorite Perfect Circle record, and I'm definitely a Perfect Circle guy over Tool for sure.
Oh wow, that's odd. They're totally different, but I get that
For sure.
By the way, it's Billy Howerdale, I think.
Billy Howerdale, not Josh.
Right.
Yeah,
it is Josh Freeze, but he's the drummer. That's why I was like, it sounds so familiar. But I guess I got to go back and listen to Eat the Elephant, because I think I only really made it. I have the album, but I think I only really liked the one single they did. But I mean, 13 Steps is probably my favorite Perfect Circle album. But I mean, that's a classical sophomore album for them. But
right. Is that the one with the noose on it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. That one, it's close, man. I mean, that one's phenomenal as well. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of came into the game late with A Perfect Circle. I didn't, like Adam, our vocalist, he's been a huge Perfect Circle forever, and he's played them around me, and I thought it was cool. There were certain songs that I really liked, The Noose being one of them. I thought that was like, anytime that came, I was like, oh yeah, that song. But it wasn't until Eat the Elephant came out that I got into the band in like a really big way. I've had a few bands like that in my life that I've just gotten into super late. Radiohead's another one.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, my sister, she had like some mix CD that like a magazine sent out, in a mailer or whatever, and it had like Fake Plastic Trees on it, and she just like played that song to absolute death, and like it's a great song, but like I heard it so many times that I just got so sick of it, and until my late 20s I was like, yeah, I don't like Radiohead. And then at some point over COVID, my friend told me like, hey man, like you should really like go outside, go on a walk, bring your headphones, and just like listen to Kid A. He's like, I think you would really like connect with that record if you were just like in the right setting. Cause I'd been trying to get into them for years and years and it just never clicked. And for whatever reason, you know, in the depths of COVID, I guess, you know, out on a walk, listening to Kid A in headphones, it just like totally clicked with me. And like, now they're one of my top 5 bands ever, I would say. So yeah, same thing with like Björk. I mean, I never paid attention to her until pretty like late in my 20s. Aphex Twin, same thing, you know, just like,
It's like
I guess it's one of those
world, that whole little like, you know, world that came into you.
It happened all at the same time, you know, and got into like Tom York's solo stuff and like Johnny Greenwood stuff. I mean, he did like his soundtrack work, like the soundtrack for There Will Be Blood, like all that whole world I kind of got into it at the same time. But maybe it was like one of those things I just wasn't really ready for it until then. You know, like I remember the first time I listened to Meshuggah, I was like, this fucking sucks. This is not music. Like, and, you know, I was like 14 and like my favorite band was like Children of Bodom and Lamb of God. And I put on Chaos Fear.
Right.
And it just sounded like somebody was like throwing trash cans down a flight of stairs to me. Like I didn't get it. And then at some point, you know, a couple years later, it just like clicked with me. So I have a long running history of just like, it's weird. Like sometimes the stuff that you think you hate, you're actually like more intrigued to like investigate further to like understand why don't I like this, and then you end up liking it. So that's happened to me a lot. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, the same thing happened there with a lot of things for me. Like, you know, everyone likes something, or certain people in your, you know, wheelhouse like something, and you just don't take to it. But then you're like, why do they like it? And Radiohead definitely was something that I grew up knowing of. Like obviously the main single Creep, but you know, you learn to find out they hate that song. And then, you know, you're like, oh, well, whatever. But I mean, I'd see their videos on MTV and like Beavis and Butthead and stuff like that in the 90s. And like, it was cool, but I didn't really ever follow them. And then I ended up taking like mushrooms at a Bonnaroo one year and they played for 3 hours. And I was like, I understand it. Yeah. So since then I've kind of like nostalgically gone back to 2014 in Tennessee and just, you know, listen to Radiohead. But the Kid A record definitely was probably, I mean, right off from the start, you know, you got like Everything in Its Right Place is a banger song in general. And then that's just the first song that you get on that album. But yeah, I mean, that's very interesting. So do you like how do you incorporate all this into like the writing, or does that even make it into the writing? Because obviously, you know, you're progressing as an artist, you're progressing as a player, but you're also like, you know, widening your musical preferences as you get older too. So like, you know, does that, you know, make it into the writing on this record or any record going, you know, in the past?
Yeah. I mean, on like the last record, especially, that was when I got into that whole world of like art, pop, electronic music, whatever you want to call it. So like, there's definitely like, there's a lot of stuff on our last record, The Work, that I just kind of like went for, like direct like influences on stuff, you know, whether it's, you know, down to like synth tone, like tones that I would use on like a certain synthesizer, you know, could be pulled from like the really like warm analog keys that like Tom York uses on his solo stuff, or like I know that like that really warm like Prophet 5 sound that opens up Kid A with Everything in Its Right Place, like that super warm analog sound. Like there's a bunch of stuff on the last record that just like, and some stuff on the new record, I would say that kind of pulls from like that sound, you know. I know on like the last record, we had a song called Focus that ends with this weird kind of glitchy, like Aphex Twins kind of like drum beat that I like used a bunch of analog synths to like chop up and build this like weird sounding beat that would be something like you might hear on like a Square Pusher album or like Drugs album from Aphex Twin. You know, sometimes it's like direct influence stuff like that, and then other times it's just a vibe thing. You know, and sometimes, you know, when you try stuff like that, I mean, being that we kind of started as a technical death metal band, I guess, with like a lot of our influences being death metal and technical death metal bands, 10, 15 years ago. And like now, listening to stuff like this, sometimes when you try new stuff, you scare your fans off for a little while, but they come back, like I know the last record when we first put it out, I think a lot of people were expecting like a Where Owls Know My Name Part 2 kind of album.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of just like intentionally did not give that to them. And like, I remember when we were putting the singles out for that record, people were just like freaking out, like, what the hell is going on? It's like all these like weird electronic, like, industrial influences and like stuff. So like sometimes when you try those things, you scare people, and I don't know, if they don't come back, that's okay too. Cause I mean, ultimately, we continue to do this because it's interesting for us. And we've always been a band that doesn't have any interest in doing the same thing over and over again. So, I don't know. We're not, I'm not going to sit here and be like, yeah, no, like we don't let anything influence us, but like, we definitely let it in, it's like I said, we're all big fans of music. We listen to a ton of music, all of us, and it's kind of unavoidable that it would work its way into our sound, especially, when it's an album that we all like really that we're all listening to actively, that we connect on. So,
yeah. And speaking of like changing and, progressing through your discography, you kind of always blended like technical death metal and progressive and ambient elements in the writing and whatnot. Was it easier or harder to balance it this time around?
I feel like it may have been easier, honestly. Being that there was like such a shakeup with the lineup, bringing Andy in from Black Crown Initiate. He and I and Adam have known each other since like probably 2007, 2008.
Wow.
His other band, Black Crown Initiate, they're from the same town as us. And like, we all just kind of came up together, going to a lot of the same shows and, just sharing what we were writing with one another. And, so we kind of speak a very similar musical language, and having him come in was kind of a big refresher on things.
Does he also help writing? Is he help writing at this point too?
Yeah,
okay.
I would say that I'm still writing like 80% of the stuff, but like instrumentally at least. But he's been really great. Forever I would read stories in magazines or see interviews where dudes in bands would be like, oh yeah, like, when I have an idea and I'm stuck, then he comes in and I'm like, oh, that's like totally what I was looking for. It fits perfectly with it. Like, I would always read about stuff like that, and like I never really experienced it. That's not a knock on any of the other dudes who have played with us before. But like, since Andy came into the band, like that's kind of how it's been, the call and response aspect with me and him, as guitarists and songwriters has been like pretty seamless. And I found that it's been cool to have him around, because he's watched the band form and grow over the years.
True, yeah.
And he has like a cool perspective on like what this band is and what we sound like. And I'll be writing stuff and he'll be like, oh dude, that's a total like, Brody-ism or whatever. Like, that's totally something that you do. And I'm like, I do that? Like, that's something I do? He's like, oh yeah. He's like, so he's kind of like helped me become more self-aware of what like my sound is as a songwriter, I guess.
Interesting.
And I think in a lot of ways that's made it easier to write songs, because I don't know, I guess I'm just like more aware of like what Andy like perceives, my sound as being, and then I can kind of like lean into that more, I guess.
I'm sure that's got to help like confidence too. Like,
yeah, it's great. I mean, he's been like my best friend, like I said, since like 07, 08, and having him around and everything has has been really great, you know, and yeah, I'm like really, it's been really cool. Just, I never thought having a new person in the band would just seem so natural. I mean, he's been like taking guitar solos and stuff. You know, I'm the only guy that's ever played lead in the band up until this record. And he's been coming up with riffs that, will inspire entire songs. He'll just give me like one little snippet of a riff and I'll be like, psh, and then in a couple days, like have an entire song. So, yeah, and it's definitely boosted my confidence as a songwriter as well, knowing that, I have him around to kind of like bounce stuff off of, and he's going to know what I'm talking about. And I know what he's talking about, you know?
Was there any track on this, on the new self-titled album that was especially challenging or especially rewarding, like after you just got it in the can or finished recording it or something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most obvious one that I could think of is actually the title track, Rivers of Nile, by Rivers of Nile on Rivers of Nile. Yeah, we went and did that. But I remember when we first wrote that song, I thought like, man, you know, it's got to be insane because it's the band name and like it's got to be nuts and all this shit. And it was like 12 or 13 minutes long, the original version of it. And I remember we were driving somewhere on tour listening to the demo version of this song, and we were just like, man, this fucking sucks. It's so boring, you know? And we like didn't know what to do with that song for the longest time. We knew there was a lot of like really cool stuff on it, really great ideas, so it didn't feel like worth scrapping. But we were just like, man, this is so boring. Like it's so fucking long. Like, you know, trying to make this big epic thing just totally backfired. And then in the end, we just like decided to pick what the like really important moments of that 13 minutes of music that we had. We decided to pick what the most important sections of it were and just kind of like cut everything else. And that song ended up being like 3 minutes long at the end, I think. And it's like one of the shortest songs that we've ever released as a band, and one of my favorites too. But that was like a particularly difficult one to complete, I guess. Yeah. Like it was written pretty quickly, but like the actual final version took forever to arrive at just because it was such a dense track on the demo versions. Another song that I personally had a lot of like I struggled a lot with was the song called Despair Church. It's kind of the whole like front half of the song is just driven by this like repetitive riff that when we first put the song together, I was just like, man, this feels like too repetitive. Like, is this boring? Like, I don't know. And Adam was just like, just wait for vocals. And like once the vocals came in, it like totally like changed my perception on the song. Cause like instrumentally, it does have a lot of repetition in it, but once the vocals were added in, you like don't even notice it, and it almost becomes like more of a hypnotic thing, which is very cool to me. And then also at the very end of that same song, Despair Church, there's like a little, maybe like minute and a half long like reprise, but it's like played on like a grand piano, and there's like a cello, and there's like a big sax lead. And that like really just like opened that whole song up and made it this like really interesting and weird song. Like the like it's almost the front half of the song is like really heavy, has like a big chorus and all that stuff, has a lot of like our more traditional moves as a band, big atmosphere and all that. And then at the end, it almost turns into like a Bjork song or something like that, you know, like real art poppy, you know, but it's like a reprise on the heavy version of the chorus. So like that song it's not that it was hard to assemble. It was just kind of hard for me to convince myself that it was going to be any good until the very end. And now it's one of my favorite songs on the record.
Did I hear you right saying that the Rivers of Nile track was originally 13 minutes long and you dwindled it down to about 3.5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, wow. So like when something like that happens, right? Or like when you released, I think as you released like a B-side from the work as part of like your, announcement situation for the self-titled. When something like that happens, I don't know how often you guys have these long songs that just, you cut most of them off, but like, do you guys save any of those parts for like ideas or whatnot that you might just scrap together some cutting room floor fodder and then create something else like a different EP or an album or song?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I save everything, even if I think it sucks, I'll still hold on to it. I mean, a really good example of something like what you just talked about that happened was when we were writing the song, The Suborbital Blues, which is like the first single that we released with the new lineup configuration. When we were writing that song, the first single that we released recently, House of Light, kind of they started as the same song almost, and House of Light was made out of the remnants of the first version of the Suborbital Blues. So like when I first wrote the Suborbital Blues, it started with that foghorn sound that House of Light starts with. They're the same tempo. Both songs are the same tempo too, or they were anyway. But the Suborbital Blues started with the foghorn and the same exact intro that House of Light starts with now. And then it went into the main riff of Suborbital Blues. But what ended up happening is we completed the Suborbital Blues, went a different direction with it, and then we had a couple of things left over. We had like the chorus for House of Light left over. We had the foghorn sample and then the intro piece for House of Light left over. And at the time, we just thought that they were like throwaway sections from like, they sucked. They weren't good enough to put in the Suborbital Blues. Like, we didn't know what we were going to do with them. And I just kind of put them away for later. And Andy kept pestering us about the chorus that I had written. He was like, that chorus, he's like, that can be big. That can be a big chorus. Like, I have vocal ideas for it. And like Adam was like, he's like, it's too sparkly. It's too like pretty, like, like, nah, and Andy just kind of worked on us for a while about it. And we ended up taking those leftover, sections of the Suborbital Blues and they basically turned into House of Light, which was the single that we released like 2 months ago now. And it's the single that we've been playing out on tour for the last, we just got back from Europe, but we were playing that live. And it's like, when we put that song out, it was like one of the biggest reactions that we've had to any new material in a very, very long time. So it's funny how something that we thought was just kind of, end up in the trash bin, ended up actually turning into something that now is probably one of our biggest songs, and, has people really stoked on what's to come after.
Yeah, that's awesome. Was Owls because you are the keys and the programming guy, I would assume that you have a heavy hand in this next bit that I'm about to ask, but is Owls the first time that you guys featured saxophone on a record? And then how do you write? Is that something you write with like the keys or guitar and then just transpose to like MIDI or obviously a live saxophonist on stage? And what kind of dog do you have?
Yeah, it's a Australian Shepherd.
Nice.
But yeah, sorry about that. Could you actually ask the second half of that again? I couldn't hear.
Sure. Yeah, no, you're good. Was Owls the first album that kind of introduced the saxophone? And then because you are also the keys and the programming guy, I would assume you can play, on a keyboard the saxophone notes, or you can write them on your guitar, obviously. And is that how it's transposed into like a MIDI form for like a live saxophone player at some point? Or do you have a saxophonist come in and just write on top of that?
Got you. So yeah, Where Owls Know My Name was the first time that we had sax on a record. And I've never written anything related to the sax. We had been working with a guy named Zach Strauss on Where Owls Know My Name, And I basically just, had him over to my place. He brought his sax. I had these big kind of open instrumental sections and was just like, what do you think? And he, wrote all of his own parts. I mean, I sat here with him and like, we kind of pieced it together, but he wrote all of his stuff for Owls. He also played sax on the LURK. And then on this new record, the guy who's been playing live sax for us and touring with us, his name's Patrick Corona. He played sax on the new record and wrote all of his own parts.
Okay.
Like I might have, an idea of, if there's like a guitar melody that's like a hook in the song, like I might make a loose suggestion, like, hey, maybe try to get to this somehow or incorporate this somehow. But the sax stuff has all been really hands off for me. And I think it's cooler that way because like, I think bringing someone in from outside and kind of letting them do their thing adds a nice, a different perspective to the material rather than if I were to just sit here and be like, this is exactly how I want the saxophone part to go. Right. It feels more human, I guess. Like it breathes. It's and it kind of gives whoever it is that's playing on the material a chance to kind of let their own voice be heard, I guess.
Do you think the sax? I mean, because Owls is like your, at least according to Billboard, right? Like your highest peaked record, right? You guys made it to like 61 or something like that on the Billboard charts with that album. Do you think the saxophone incorporation had something to do with that as far as like gaining new fans or, getting a different audience to listen to the band for the first time?
I mean, to say it doesn't have anything to do with that would probably be foolish. It definitely was a talking point, when people were like, oh, like a death metal band with a saxophone, like what's this all about? So like it was definitely like it was like a hook in, like check this out for sure. I don't know, like we really changed up our sound on Where Owls Know My Name from like the previous stuff that we released, because we were really like a tech death band up until Owls, and then when we put out Owls, we were putting like, there was clean vocals and like we were really focusing on song structure for the first time instead of just riff salad. There was acoustic guitars and synthesizers and just like it was like a totally different sound. Even taking the sax out of the equation, it was like a totally different sound for the band up until that point. And so it's hard to pinpoint like what the one thing, like if there was one thing that made that album click so hard. I think it was a combination of a lot of things, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think that the sax is definitely a big part of it, I would say, because even though there have been plenty of bands, in metal who have brought saxophone in, I mean, the Faceless, Ishan, the Shining, you know what I mean? There's tons of examples of sax and different woodwind and brass instruments being used in metal. Like, I don't know like why it like really like resonated with people on that record specifically. So like, I'm not sure. It's probably a lot of different things, but yeah, like I said, it was definitely, a point of curiosity for a lot of people. I think I still see it, even now on like Twitter, I'll see people tagging us and they'll be like, yeah, well, if you've never heard a death metal band with a saxophone, and like people are like, wow, how did they ever think of that? Right. Which is hilarious. Like that's one of my favorite questions that people ask is like, how did you ever think to put a saxophone on a death metal record? And it's just like, I don't fucking know, man. Like we just knew a guy who was sick at saxophone and we just were like, yo, come over and play it. Like it was not this like, I don't know. I guess people like to pontificate about these kind of things and like think that there's some like deeper thing to it. But it was literally like, hey, dude, you want to come over and fucking play some sax? It might be sick. And it was, and that's basically it. And that's the whole thing. So,
I mean,
but yeah.
that's usually how that shit goes in general. It's just buddies coming over and hanging out, and then you're like, hey, let's try this. And it just happens to work, or, add another element to the song. But I mean, I guess fans or, the everyday person wants this big, like, explanation of like, well, I was really diving into this, and this. And why did I choose saxophone? Because I really hate brass instruments and I really liked woodwinds.
Yeah. I mean, I like when I see bands that like lean into it, like I respect it, like I know I saw like something when Blood Incantation was putting out their new record, like, they were talking about like how like the message was transmitted from the Stargate and all this stuff.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I remember
and I
that.
was like sick, I guess. And like, but like for us, it's just like, I don't know. Sax guy came over. We were like, dude, fucking try this shit. And then he did. And that was it,
Yeah.
So when bands do lean into it, I think it's cool. But like, that's one instance with us where like there's really no mysticism. It's just like we knew a guy and we had a bunch of stuff that I didn't want to play guitar solos on, so we were like, try fucking sax, fuck it,
Hey, it's easier than writing a solo, I think. But yeah,
exactly.
Speaking of the Blood Incantation rollout was, I think for me it was off-putting because I was like, this is kind of very nerdy stuff. But then the record comes out and I'm like, this is my favorite album of the year. So to each his own, obviously. I came around. On the new record, is there any kind of like new equipment or, new tunings or techniques that you guys used on the record? Not just, but like in general?
Mm-hmm. I mean, really just the biggest change I would say is probably the addition of Andy on vocals. I mean, his voice is so unique, and he's such a talented vocalist. Just having him around really like kind of just opened like a whole nother dimension for us sonically. So I mean, while there's not really like, I can't really think of like any specific like gear or like techniques that we used on this record from like a technical standpoint. I mean, just having the additional dimension of Andy's vocals, really opened up a new dimension for us sonically, and then like having Adam singing, main screaming vocals is like another big change for us, and adds a different dimension to this stuff because previously, I mean, Adam's always written the lyrics for the band, always has. And then he would kind of have to filter them through our previous vocalist. And sometimes he would have to, change stuff around so that it was like within the range of what Jake was like capable of doing and stuff. And like now it's cool to see Adam like writing this stuff that, he's writing it and then he's like performing it, so I think for him, writing vocals and vocal arrangements, knowing that he's going to be the one performing it, kind of added this new like perspective to things. And like there's stuff on this record, like there's a lot of really fast, like staccato-y, like 16th note style, like screaming vocals, like almost like corpse grindery kind of stuff. Not doesn't sound like Corpse Grinder, but that like really like staccato-y kind of thing. Like that was something that, Jake didn't really love doing. So like there's like certain techniques that he used, I know, that are new for us. But yeah, I mean, really, I think that the new dimension on this record is like, it really falls under like the vocal domain. Yeah. Like,
I can see
just
that.
like, yeah, real, a big upgrade in the vocal camp overall. I would say I'm the only guy in the band that doesn't sing now, which I will never sing. Don't give me a microphone.
You got other shit to do on stage anyway outside of playing guitar.
For sure.
But speaking of like the new lineup and the addition of of everybody, how has that changed like the attitude of the band? Like, I mean, granted, you guys have had different members, mostly the drummer Revolving Door until about 2017 when you guys have your current drummer. But like, how does the attitude of the band feel now that, you've kind of turned the page and on a new chapter?
I mean, really good. Me and Biggs, or me and Adam and Andy, like I said, I mean, we've known each other since like '07, and like we have all three of us have a very similar sense of humor. And Jared, being that he's been in the band since like 2017, at this point, I mean, his humor is kind of like right in there with us. So, I mean, there's just a lot of laughing, a lot of ball busting. I mean, we're all like haters in a funny way. So like we all, we all connect on that for sure. I mean, I think that like guys who had previously been in the band may have, not, this isn't a burn, but like may have not been able to hang with our level of ball busting and humor. So, now that, the four of us, like we just, it's a really like good environment. I would say like everyone acts, no one acts weird. And like, if someone does something stupid or weird or whatever, like we kind of just, make fun of them. I'm not saying we're like bullying, each other in like an unhealthy way.
You could
it's like, yeah, I mean, it's like healthy bullying, I would say, but, yeah, like, I don't know. It's like a good environment, I would say. Like, everyone gets along. There's like no fighting. We're pretty honest with each other. Like if we think something sucks, we're just like, yo, that sucks. And like, maybe someone will get bummed about it, but then they get over it. If they don't, we make fun of them and then they get over it. Like, it's just, it's, I don't know. It's good. I don't know. I don't really know what else to say about it. It just feels like a bunch of friends hanging out, just busting each other's balls and playing music and shit.
Are there a lot of hijinks and pranks on the road or in like the studio when you guys are all together? Or is it more bullying? Or is it just more bullying of everybody?
More bullying. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we're like a big pranks band, but just like, I think there's just like a lot of bullying, I would say.
Awesome.
In like a good way, like someone says something to you that's like, they're really thoughtful, like, hey, well, I think we should do this. And then you repeat it back to them. And then, well, I think we, and
right. My
just
favorite.
Like, just to make them feel bad for a second. And then they laugh, there's just like a lot of stuff like that. Especially Andy and I, me and him will really like go at it with each other. But it's always funny to like when we're on tours, seeing our humor kind of like spill out into other camps, like of the bands that we're like on tour with, or like just like doing stuff around venue staff to like get a couple of laughs. Like one of my favorite things that Andy does is, especially when we're in Europe and like there's like the language barrier, Andy will, he'll go to plug something in on the stage when like a house tech is walking by and he'll pretend to get electrocuted. And like they'll get really scared for a second and then we'll all just laugh. Like just, so if maybe that would fall under the domain of pranks, but we just laugh a lot. And have a good time. Really, it's been fun and really stress free. Honestly, like writing this record was honestly, I mean, the things leading up to this record were definitely the most stressful period for the band, I would say. But once we got to where we're at now, making the record was like so stress free, and it just feels like it kind of just happened. Like I feel like I don't even really remember writing this record, like in a good way though, like it feels like it just kind of like happened, because everything was so like good between the four of us.
Yeah. All right. I've waited till the end to ask this question, but I feel like, times have changed in the last couple of years, so you may have a different answer or something like that. But a couple of years ago when you guys were finishing up this record, I believe, an editor somewhere like tried to call out Adam for liking some tweets or whatever. And I was curious as to, because of like how, the last 5 years have transpired and whatnot, how is that? I mean, for a band to deal with, and like, how was it dealing with something like that where you get, called out on Twitter or something like that, and then obviously you have like the quote unquote Twitter mobs or whatever coming after you and whatnot. But like, as a band, like, how is, obviously that doesn't matter in the long run, right? Like, cause here we are today, records coming out, Adam's doing fine, everyone's doing fine. But how does that, like, how is dealing with something like that? I mean, that's not even a big thing, and obviously now you can't even see what tweets are liked, so bonus probably. But how was that?
I mean, dude, it was weird. Like, it's just like, I've known the dude for like my whole life. And like some of the shit that these people were saying about him online, I was just like, what? I was just like, dude, I was like, no, like, I was like, you're like summing up this whole dude, like, into this narrow little thing that you think is like I don't know. I don't want to like speak for him or anything.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to.
But like, it was so fucking weird, dude. And then it was like, no one cared in like 2 weeks. It was like the biggest thing ever for like 10 days.
Yeah.
And then like, that was it.
Yeah.
And it's like, and these people who were like going in on it, like they weren't at the shows. Like, it was just like this happened like right before we went on a tour with Between the Buried and Me. Mm. And like, the tour was fucking awesome. It was like our best tour ever up until that point. It was really strange, man. It was just like, I saw it like the early like onset of it, and I was just like, what? I was like, what are these people talking about? And like, didn't think much of it. And then the next thing I know, it was like, boom. And then like I said, 10 days later, the whole thing was over. And like, no one even knows like what happened now for the most part, like, he actually did we did an interview with Metal Hammer on our last tour, and the interviewer brought it up and just kind of like asked him to talk about it. And like, but that was like the first time that I'd heard about it in like 2.5 years from anyone. So it's so fucking weird, man. Like, everything seems like this huge fucking thing, like, as it's happening on the internet, but like, it's just like on to the next thing, just like that. Like, it was really stressful, obviously, it was just like, I don't, like, what the fuck, what's happening,
Yeah. But no one in your day-to-day or in the real world, like, ever really mentioned it or brought it up or whatever, right? Yeah, that's
just like
usually
just
how it
like,
happens.
Like, you see this is what the fuck, this is fucking weird. Yeah. Like, it was like, yeah, dude, like, there's just these people that just like wanted to kill us basically, and then like next basically it was so fucking weird, dude.
I don't even think when stuff like that happens, especially because unfortunately the comedians tweets and stuff that he was liking, or whether it be Tim Pool's tweets or something like that, like, all these people are targets for certain people in general. And, I'm sure the bot machine was probably pointed at you guys for a little bit because it fit into some weird narrative along the line for something or another. So I would even assume half, if not most, of the tweets were that directed in your direction were even from real people. Because again, in the real world, when you're on tour, or when you're talking to people in day to day, like, it's not something that comes up or anyone really knows about. So
yeah, it's weird. Like, the stuff that people will go in on you for on social media, specifically Twitter. Like, I mean, I remember at one point over COVID, like, I fucking tweeted about Bitcoin, like, and someone was like, man, you're a fucking like hardcore right winger, man. Like, I don't think I want to listen to your band anymore. I was like, what? Cause I tweeted about Bitcoin. Like, what do you, like, it's fucking, I don't know. That whole thing was like a real learning experience for all of us, like, as far as like the internet versus reality, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I mean, ultimately that whole thing was kind of over in the blink of an eye, So yeah, it was a strange time, but it was like gone as soon as it arrived,
Yeah.
really.
I mean, I didn't really think about it until doing this podcast, and I was like, oh yeah, that one thing that happened a couple of years ago that was pretty silly.
Yeah.
Are you into Bitcoin? Are you still are you into it? Not to like blow your cover and have the internet mobs come back after you and no one listen to your
Well,
band, but
I don't care at this point, but yeah, I'm definitely into Bitcoin. I'm definitely orange pilled for sure. Well, maybe not, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say I'm orange pilled, but yeah, I definitely believe in the coin, and I am hodling for sure. So.
yeah. I mean, I just bought some more on this recent dip, and then today I was getting discouraged. But as of now, I think we have a couple. It went up a couple $1,000s as far as the total price of Bitcoin, not my account, but just the
Right.
total price.
Yeah,
It's interesting to see where it's going to go because if you look at Reddit, they think it's going to like go through the roof to like 150 a coin or something like that, which I'm here for, but we'll see.
I mean, dude, I kind of just I've bought it and I just forget about it really. Like I just kind of treat it like a savings account,
Yeah, I did the same thing. I did the same thing a couple years ago.
It's like, if you look at it, from week to week and, you see the price go up and down. I mean, it's always good. There's always going to be dips. It's always going to go down, but then it's going to go way up. I mean, if you just look, you zoom out, it's just gone up, 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 up. You just kind of have to play the long game with it. So, not financial advice, of course, but,
No.
that's what I've done. And yeah, there have been a few people who have wanted to call me a bad person for doing that. So whatever.
Shame on you. Shame on you. Yeah, I mean, I missed. Lambgoat's Vanflip podcast is not a basis of how to spend your money or financial advisories at all. So don't listen. But I've missed every other explosion in Bitcoin history, even though I'm like paying attention. So a couple years ago, I was like, "Fuck it, dude! I started buying it on 38,000, and
Hell yeah, dude.
just kind of getting in there. So I got a little something, but yeah, it's been very interesting to see, and I'm awaiting for it to get up to, when it broke six figures, I was like, Jesus Christ, here we are.
That was crazy. I remember when it cracked 100K. I remember where I was. I was like, damn, because yeah, I mean, to think in 2021 or whatever, it was like 35, and then it dipped down to like 16K after that,
Oh, yeah.
and like, I'm just like, fuck, man, I should have just like sold everything I owned and like bought a shitload at 16K, because I don't think it's ever going to be that low again. And now, it went up to what, like 106, 107, like that's insane. So anyway, this could be a whole separate podcast for sure.
Of course. But being from Jacksonville, where the first pizza was ever bought for Bitcoin, I figured I have.
Bitcoin Pizza Day. I forget what day that is, but the poor bastard that bought a fucking pizza with Bitcoin, dude. What did he spend, like 30 Bitcoin? Like, it was something.
Couple, yeah.
It was like millions and millions of dollars for a pizza.
Whoops. But anyway, I try to tell myself, even if I bought in before it got to 10K before, because like I was aware of it when it was like $80 a coin. I knew about it. I wasn't really like, I didn't know what it was about or anything, but I was like, should I buy this? I got a Coinbase wallet I got one way back in the day, and then I checked it 10 years later, and I had like $200 in it just from those little slivers that they gave me. And yeah, I mean, I just said fuck it, and we'll see what happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we definitely will. But yeah, I mean, I have a couple of friends who got in like 2013, and like I'm just like, man, like
I would have sold so many times by then. I think.
I mean, I know guys that sold when it was at when it went up to like 6,000. You know what I mean? Like they had probably like 15 or 20 coins, and they sold it when it hit 6K. Can you imagine? Oh my God.
Yeah, I would love to be able to imagine it. That's for sure. But Brody, I'll cut you loose here because we don't want to get on too much of a side tangent, even though we're running over an hour here. But Self-titled coming out May 30th on Metal Blade Records. You guys also have the Aggressive Progressive Tour, which is you guys headlining Holy Fawn, Inter Arma, and Glacial Tomb, which that kicks off late May, and that's a North American run. No Florida dates. That's okay. No big deal.
Sorry.
I had to complain. You know, I'd be one of those guys. What?
Yeah.
No
Why no
Idaho
Florida?
date?
Yeah.
But anyway, Brody, thank you for your time and congrats on the new record. I was listening to it earlier today. It was awesome. I'm so glad that you guys have the saxophone still in there. I think that's a great addition. And
yeah,
yeah, man, best of luck.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.